Woo! I've been blowing my nose a lot. That's delicious curry. Today is April 20th, 2025, and I want to thank the grocery store here that gives us donations every Saturday. I made a chicken curry with rice. I had to buy Glico, uh, but I also had two different powders. It's pretty spicy but delicious, and I'll be freezing some. Oh, this is a Lessons in Democracy that I won't be posting for at least 10 days. And the reason for that is there's a little bit of a strategy that I want to be used in it. Hey, listen to this. This is the Bill Kelly podcast, okay? And he says it's about discussions, except he rarely has guests. He's mostly talking by himself, so I would maybe change that advertising about what he does on this podcast. But listen to this, and you'll see why um, all parties are kind of disconnected from the general population.
Topic that we're going to get into in greater detail a little bit later on. But because things have happened that I think have turned a lot of people off who might have even leaned towards conservative values. Two of the elements, as I talk to people, just voters and people in the political world, and people in my realm, of course, as commentators and talk show hosts, a couple of things that really bothered them. One, of course, was in the Harper government, the barbaric practice of snitch line that was introduced and advocated for, not by Harper alone, but by other members, including Polyev, by the way, and others, Kelly Lee.
Okay, I didn't go back far enough. This is actually from 2 weeks ago, this one. It's called In Defense of Mark Carney. But a little bit earlier in the video, he mentions that when there was a merger with the Reform Party and conservatives, and they dropped the word progressive, and but he doesn't define it. So again, it should be defined regularly, not just once every 4 years, what the terms liberal mean, what the National Democratic Party stands for, and is as short a definition as possible, and conservative, because really it's if they're really like this, if they're really using that word, and if they really want to use efficient language, then you can measure their behaviors and choices and voting patterns. Because one way to see how truthful Poilievre is about what he's saying, and how he's not saying I've had a change of heart, for example, I'm now going to do this, is to see his voting pattern over the time he's been in a career as a MP. You can see some history of Carney, but you can see a lot at the member of parliament level with Pierre Poilievre. And if he doesn't say, I realized that wasn't conservative, or the reason I voted, or the reason I'm changing my mind, or the reason this is inconsistent, what I'm saying now to get votes is different than how I voted, he could say a reason, right? Except that those conversations are a bit too complex and require too much of a desire to educate yourself in Canadian politics that don't match his voting base, what he's going for. I read some of the pamphlets for local candidates here. I can do a vlog on that later. This one's not going to be posted till after the election. The other thing I want to say is the strategy that the Conservative Party is not using to win is, if they are really in tune with their communities, conservative candidates, when they're touring, they would say to the right places and the right people in the right way, not necessarily on live TV with CBC. They would say, if we become a majority government, we will soon ask for a new leader to the Conservative Party, because a lot of the people that are not wanting to vote conservative they don't trust Poilievre, and that's pretty appropriate. So if they did that, they would maybe tip over and get a majority, especially in provinces like British Columbia. But the thing is that's scary. I don't want them to win, because whoever they vote in, or whatever they're doing, it's backdoor It's manipulative, it's dishonest, it's divisive, and that's kind of what they should include in their you know conservative definition, except that those words were not linked to that. And whatever Poirier says liberal is linked to this now, linked to, the Anthropocene, you know, or capitalism's negative outcomes. Well, they would be even worse, capitalism's negative outcomes to the majority, if it had been conservatives that had been in power as long as liberals have. And it's pretty sad again in the debates that I read a local candidate's Green Party that we have, and we have a liberal. So we have 5 here. I was surprised my mom said there's 4. Should be 5. I'm not sure if she was accurate. I'd have to look it up where she lives in Quebec. But when I see the Green Party MP mentions, and of course I understand that's her ancestry, and of course she has to mention this, but there's kind of no real links to what I would say would be under Green Party. And again, it's okay to advocate, and it should be for a long time more advocacy if it's done the right way for the right things with transparency for Indigenous and First Nations communities. But like she made no link to, let's say, the Earth system science of sustainability. Because today I wrote to a group, an association, the Truck Loggers Association of BC. I said, hey, you use the word sustainability improperly. You can use sustainable as often as you like. And in fact, you can use it in many different ways to describe methods, behaviors, patterns, practices. But don't use the word sustainability improperly. But at least they tried to say that word, except everybody says it wrong, including university professors. I've had to fire mine for that. They kind of sometimes knew, sometimes didn't realize how, but mostly they just didn't care about language or Earth system science, or the things they still had to learn because they had their elite status. In a way, some of the worst learners in the world are elite university professors, right? Once you get your status, it's amazing. It's not necessarily an intellectual laziness that gets them after that. Like, I was just looking at the Vancouver Island University website for the master's program that I was in, and there's not even a place on 2 different parts of their website where they'll list a faculty. It's like nobody wants to be associated with it now. And I can't blame them, because they failed and they didn't apply some of the logic that I gave them when I fired them, and say I'd like to help you because, it's important that I do. So, Harper also had strong links to that university, so pretty much killed the concept of lifelong learning there. And so just to finish up here with this topic, is that if a Green Party candidate, focuses only on the rights of people that may or may not be the most oppressed, but kind of does very little effort or shows very little understanding to linking it to the concept of, let's say, sustainability. And one thing about sustainability that I insist people use properly is that it involves more than just our species. And the other thing is that it's future oriented. And that's something I need to see.